and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Malaysia's Olympic Council has received a formal invitation from the Commonwealth Games Federation to host the 2026 Commonwealth Games. This after the Australian state of Victoria paid the equivalent of 1.2 billion ringgit to pull out as hosts of the next Games, citing projected cost overruns. Now, the CGF's invitation to Malaysia comes with an offer of £100 million. That's roughly slightly over 600 million ringgit. And no decision has been made yet on this offer, but the government says it will scrutinise the deal, the details of the deal before making a final decision. But we have so far reactions from industry stakeholders, which have been mixed. So joining us on the show to discuss whether or not Malaysia should host the 2026 Commonwealth Games, I have Datuk Dr. Ramlan Aziz, former Director General of the National Sports Council and former founding CEO of the National Sports Institute. Dr. Ramlan, thank you so much for being on the show with me. I'm wondering, right off the bat, what do you think? Should Malaysia accept the offer to host the 2026 Commonwealth Games?
My feeling is from the outset. Firstly, thank you very much for inviting me to air my views and opinions. In the first instance, of course, we are awaiting scrutiny of the whole offer from CGF by our cabinet, and we will look forward to the decision. But in the meantime, I think there's been a lot of discussion and talk, or from all and sundry about the wisdom of hosting as substitute to Victoria. And I think in the first place, my instincts as someone involved in sport is I'm always trying to be brave, in order to make progress. In the end, if you say that you cannot do this, you cannot do that, you'll never achieve anything in the first place, all right? So it is an attitude, I feel, which is something, of course, people look at it as perhaps foolhardy and all that, but let's have a balanced view of the whole thing. My first instinct is that, yeah, why not? Rather than let's not do it, you see. So let's consider this, right? In the first instance, number one, we are being given an opportunity to host this without having to bid for it, which will cost about 22.5 million pounds in the first instance. Secondly, there's such a thing I've heard about a fee of 5 million pounds levied upon the host by the Commonwealth Games Association, right, for development and all that. So that's already 27.5 million pounds that we do not have to pay, right? Then with the 100 million pounds, which is not a small amount of money, let's not scoff at that. Then we have an opportunity to do something that would put us on a good state, because if you remember the last time we did the Commonwealth Games, it was a success in terms of the sporting aspect of the event. However, subsequent matters came up regarding the financial management and all that. I think those are things which we can certainly learn from, because in the meantime, government procedures and processes have been tightened up, and So I think So there are other issues, of course, that have been raised regarding athlete preparation needing 5 to 6 years, so on and so forth.
Okay, I want to compare the '98 Commonwealth Games with a 2006 Commonwealth Games. So let's say, if we were to host it in 2026, what would be, how different are we compared, our circumstances now compared then, not just in terms of the sporting infrastructure that we have, but in terms of the economic capacity, in terms of our checks and balances, to make sure that we don't have the same make the same mistakes we did back then, or even have the same kind of cost overruns that we've seen Victoria have?
Well, in the first place, we'll have to study and scrutinize the whole running of the event. Okay, we cannot afford to be lavish anyway. Right now, with so many issues that we have learned from in the past, it's not enough to just cite issues that have happened in the past. for you to actually say they've learned from it, you have to demonstrate that you have learned from it. Okay, it's no use saying, "Oh, we have done this, so let's go away from that." These are the things that when you do things which are that challenge you, that are difficult. These are the things that make you progress. So I think that if we look at all the processes, financial processes, procedures that have been tightened up by government and by civil service, then I think we have put ourselves in a good state to test it, to put it into play in terms of how well integrity, movement, audit capability, and also the fact that we've got MACC, they can all be skirting around. And let's not wait until the end before we say, oh, we've spent too much or we spent too lavishly here and there. So we can do a sort of a periodic scrutiny of the finances as we go along. So I think we can also exercise some creativity in the way that we improve ourselves, rather than just fear to improve ourselves and prove to us that we have done badly before, but we can do better now, and we have done better.
Right. So you think we can host the Commonwealth Games without the ballooning costs that are often associated with hosting mega sports events?
Yeah, I'm sure. When the Ministry of Youth and Sport present their paper to the cabinet, I'm sure it will include things like how the whole thing will unfold. Right? What are the sort of elements in the event that we can still preserve, and those elements which are superfluous or too lavish and will run the cost up too much. So I think this is something that this is an opportunity. To me, if you just dismiss it out of hand, it is easy enough. Right? But have we become a nation of low-hanging fruit pickers, right? Where we want everything to be easy and presentable, and nothing challenges us. So how are we going to progress as a nation and as a society if we are too afraid to take up challenges?
So you think a trimmed down version of the Commonwealth Games is a feasible option for Malaysia?
I think it is very likely, because we are what we call in the Malay vernacular, we are bidan terjun, yes? Bidan terjun. So bidan terjun, that means we have some room for negotiation with CGF and say that, look, can we reduce the scale of the event? Can we reduce the number of participants? Even some things, some of the events that we think perhaps might not be of interest to people, we can do that. We can negotiate with that, because we have come in good faith, right? And out of goodwill, and they have to reciprocate that good faith and goodwill, with allowing us to trim down in a way that will preserve and continue this legacy of the Commonwealth Games. Otherwise, they run the risk of the whole thing running to a halt. And also, the fact that we are doing this is also as a standard bearer of trimming down the Commonwealth Games, so that in the future, who knows, other countries, our neighbors, Singapore or some other countries who are in the Commonwealth scenario, might be emboldened to host, because we have managed to show the way how this thing can be done at the lower cost and the much lower scale.
The critics who are against this often point to the fact that the significant investment or the capital outlay to host such mega sporting events often outweigh the benefits. And I just want us to think beyond the monetary effects or the monetary cost, or even the benefits, the monetary multiplier effect. What are the hidden benefits of hosting sporting events like the Commonwealth Games? Just based on your perspective, I know you were part of the sports doctor team in 1998. So,
yes, I was, yeah.
So tell me, what are the benefits of hosting this for us as a country?
Okay. Well, in the first instance, it will not take 5 to 6 years for us to get ready in terms of the sporting aspect. Okay, that's one thing I have to be clear about, because we're not from ground zero with the lawn bowls or trying to, elevate the standard of rhythmic gymnastics, for example. Lawn bowls are now world class. Okay, and then we've got good competition in hockey, in track cycling, badminton, of course, as usual, and we have, I think, perhaps. We have now come to a system where we are preparing athletes on a continuous basis anyway, right? We have development budgets from Rancangan Malaysia, and then we have annual budgets as well, allocations, so on and so forth. So I think the athletes are being prepared on a continuous basis. So there's no such thing as, we need 5 to 6 years to prepare athletes. No, our athletes are prepared on an annual basis to compete at the international level. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing is that, you remember when we did all of this, suddenly we came from the backwaters, having suddenly the nation has become the focus of the whole world. Okay, now business people, they'll be lining up, to be in the limelight. So I'm not a business person. I can't sell a burger by the roadside, to save myself. But at the most important thing is that I feel that if we have to hear from the business side as well, and I'm sure they'll be saying things. We haven't heard anything. It's all from all of us, lay people on the economic side. I've had a friend who actually sent me a post in a WhatsApp group, and he made really good points. And he's from the town planning, development, architectural domain, and he made a lot of sense. And it opened up my eyes from the business point of view, but from the sports science, sports point of view as well. The fact that we have the National Sports Institute now, with the capability in sports science, sports medicine, and anti-doping as well. We are all here and such a high level by that sort of injection of development and what do you call it? You catapult everything, right? You elevate everything. And I think with all the frustrations that we've got sports-wise recently, right? Why are we not winning? Why are we the nearly, we're bridesmaids and all that? So now it's time for us to have a further injection for the sports. You see, sports is not merely play, I know the value of sports, because if you put sports like this, then you will excite the whole country and you unite. The unifying factor is not a small one, number one. Number two, people who are inspired to play sports, the youngsters who watch all of this, they will become, some of them will become the athletes of the future. The rest, they might not become athletes of the future, but they will love sports for health, fitness, and recreation. So that means we'll be a more healthy society because of this event. And then how much money would you spend to improve your health sector, your crime prevention sector, because one kid on the street, because they are playing sport, is one less kid on the road, on the roadside.
So you're saying there's an intrinsic value of sport, and that will come by hosting, mega sporting events like the Commonwealth Games. I do want to ask you very quickly about, so you pointed to the legacy of the Commonwealth Games. And I just want to ask you, how much of a draw is the Commonwealth Games still? Is it still an attention puller, a crowd bringer? Will it get the ticket sales that we want if we were to host it? Is it still important, just in terms of the multi-sports calendar? What would you say about the legacy of the Commonwealth Games? Is it still relevant today?
No, as far as Malaysians are concerned, we are patriotic people, right? We will wave our flag proudly anytime any one of us. You don't even have to win, it's just we are on the same platform as world-class athletes, and it excites us, right? So we'll be united in cheering for our athletes and so on and so forth. And I think in the first place, if you look at the whole situation, the prestige of the Commonwealth Games has been diminished because between the cost of the whole thing becoming bigger and bigger, and the fact that it is not being refreshed, renewed, regenerated. So I think this is the time, forced by Victoria's withdrawal, for us to step into a leadership breach, right? And show everybody else that we can do it at a much lower cost, something that will leave an even better legacy. Then you will perhaps be positive for the survival of the Commonwealth Games rather than the end of it.
All right, thank you so much for speaking with me. That was Datuk Dr. Ramlan Aziz, former Director General of the National Sports Council. We're going to take a quick break here and consider this. We will be back with more. Stay tuned. Hi, welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. Let's continue our discussion as to whether or not Malaysia should host the 2026 Commonwealth Games. Joining us now is Christopher Raj. He is a sports analyst and former journalist. He's also a media marketing and public relations expert. Chris, thank you for being on the show with me today. So the Commonwealth Games Association of Malaysia, they have said in a statement that they are of the opinion the government should consider this, quote, once in a lifetime opportunity, and that it will put Malaysia back onto the world sporting map. And I just wondered what your position was on that. What do you think? Should we accept the offer to host it?
Thank you, Melissa. It's great seeing you. I think the government should not take this offer because after reading carefully on what's being offered to the government and the kind of costing and what is going to cost the taxpayers, it is far more negative for us than more positive movement that's going to take place. In 2002, just to give the viewers some numbers, the Commonwealth Games started with 183 million budget. Today, as we speak, the Commonwealth budget expenditures around 6 billion. And that tells you how much of money being spent on hosting this international event, which is losing its status. Commonwealth Games today has become like the SEA Games. It's becoming very irrelevant. And that's why people, or countries, for example, they don't want to host these tournaments because it makes no impact to the economy compared to the Asian Games and the Olympics. And you find countries rushing to host the Asian Games because it's a qualification to the Olympics that takes place. Commonwealth Games is not an Olympic qualification system. So it is more of you host it, you celebrate the event, and you pat yourself on your own back and say you did a great job. You know, it is not adding any value.
Right.
Now, the only Commonwealth Games that actually made profit was actually Gold Coast 2018. They spent 1.04 billion and made a revenue of 25% revenue, 118 million from the total tourism package that they had. And moving forward in Birmingham 2022, they spent 717 million pounds. So actually what SEA Games Federation offering the Malaysian government is a drop in the ocean, Melissa. It is nowhere near.
Chris,
Yeah.
the numbers are staggering, eye-watering numbers. So tell me, why is it so expensive to host a mega sporting event? Is there a way to do it cheaper and without the cost overruns?
Yes, of course. In 1998, when the Malaysian government hosted the Commonwealth Games, we spent close to 1.5 billion ringgit, which was inclusive of the infrastructure. The complex Sokan Bukit Jalil was built, the aquatic center, the badminton stadium, all the facilities together, and 200 million more to prepare the athletes. Then in 1992, the Malaysian government said we need to prepare the athletes for the Commonwealth Games, so they started a program called Jaya 1998. Athletes started preparing from 1992. It was a 6-year preparation to host the 98 Commonwealth Games, right? And that's how Malaysia did so well in 98. You know, all the athletes who were spotted then, who continued to represent the country, came from the Jaya 1998 program, right? So now we are 2 years away from this Commonwealth Games. We have not started any preparation. We don't have the athletes to start in first place, right? And you're going to spend perhaps 1 year or 2 years collection of SST, which is 3 billion a year, if that's what the government says, to fund the 6 billion tournament. It just doesn't make sense. And not forgetting, in 2026, we have the Asian Games in Nagoya, which then MSN and KBS will be spending about 200 million ringgit preparing the athletes for the Asian Games. So my question would be, where is the priority? Yeah, where is the priority? First, we don't have the athletes. Number two, we don't have the infrastructure. Stadiums, as you know, Malaysians, we know for a fact, we don't have the culture of maintenance. The European culture, they maintain the stadium, they have the infra, and they can host the tournaments or competitions back to back, right? You probably know, Melissa, that during the SEA Games 2017, the government spent another 400 over million refurbishing a stadium that's already built to do the 2017 SEA Games, right? The only way I see, if ever there are other theories behind this to put Malaysia on the map, of international events, and there are other storytelling process to this, is that you share the competition throughout Malaysia. For example, you have the main event in Kuala Lumpur. Sarawak, for example, will host the swimming and diving. Johor will host maybe cycling or martial arts, or so the games are actually broken up to various parts of Malaysia.
Right. Is that a good idea, Chris, in terms of logistics and I guess multiplier effect? I'm thinking the pros and cons of decentralizing the games.
Logistically, it'll be a nightmare because there'll be one venue to host the opening ceremony and one venue to host the closing ceremony. So I'm not sure how you're going to bring 11,000 athletes to one particular state, and then they break up to other states for competition, and then you bring them back again to Kuala Lumpur for the closing ceremony. I think it becomes more expensive. Like the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham and in Gold Coast or Glasgow, they all were centralized in one city. So the tourism impact, the impact of marketing, commercialization, that they started 3-4 years before hosting the event, they saw a fantastic revenue to the city. And one of the things about this Commonwealth Games, Melisa, is that the Commonwealth Games is 100% funded by the city council. So the revenue goes back to the city council. It doesn't go back to the sports ministry of particular state. So whatever revenue Gold Coast made, the 200 million, it went back to the Gold Coast Tourism Board or Tourism Council. So that's how they operate in the European segment.
Right. I want to get your thoughts on the impact to Malaysia's global reputation, Chris. The Commonwealth Games Association of Malaysia said that this will put Malaysia back onto the world sporting map. And, that there's some people who say that this is true. It will increase or boost our international standing. But where do you see the risks, the reputational risks, and where do you see the reputational gains?
Well, I think in a positive note, obviously, if you host the international event and you host it well, without any issues, you definitely put Malaysia on the world map. But if you don't do it well, you have issues in terms of accommodation, food, logistic nightmares, broadcasting issues, etc. Then you're going to hire consultants to solve your problems, instead of having some positive vibes, you're going to have a lot of negativity. And this is just not Malaysia. Now the whole of Commonwealth fraternity will be talking about it. So I think, and also given the current economy, the state that we are in, if we spent 1.5 billion in 1998, I think we're looking at about easily 6 billion now. You talk about inflation of the currency and etc. And the money that you need to pump into respective state councils or ministries to get it going. It's a huge financial implications, Melisa. And I'm not sure, if we take the cue from the Prime Minister who says we need to cut the cost, we need to keep to the budget and etc. Hosting a $6 billion event, I don't think it's really feasible. But if you ask me, I think Malaysia should host Asian Games, because Asian Games standing is far more greater, in my opinion, to Commonwealth Games. And Asian Games gives you the qualification to the Olympics. And Malaysia has never hosted Asian Games. Never. We have never hosted Asian Games in our history. So by hosting Asian Games, our athletes will be more prepared for the Olympic qualification, and with tourism coming on board. And all the cities, if you look at their blueprint, right, from Manchester 2002 to Melbourne to Glasgow, Gold Coast, Birmingham, they all started the blueprint 4 years before they bid it. There was a tourism package. There was a commercial package. Tickets were sold together with rooms and flights. So, and commercially, it was very commercially driven, Melisa. It is not government driven. So And sponsorship in Malaysia, I've been in this for 20 years now. In the last year and this year, it's been very, very tough in terms of sponsorship for a lot of the sporting federation. And we keep going back to the same brand. It's the same 6, 7 big boys helping them. And if you want to host this, you need to have 25 to 30 international brands coming on board to do this. You can't go back to the likes of Petronas and TNB and say, hey, we need funds, and therefore, because you really need a very strong commercial driven project to see the success of the Commonwealth Games, Melisa.
Thank you so much for speaking with me. That was Chris Raj, a sports analyst and former journalist there, wrapping up this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.